Hey, are you interested in game development? Great. So how about indie game development?
Yeah,
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
So maybe we should explain the title of this video a little bit. What we wanted to do was give people a perspective on what running an indie studio is actually like compared to what you think it might be like.
Yeah.
So you've written your hot water bill will go through the roof. What do you mean?
When you're an indie developer and you are working from home, at least some of the time, you will take a buttload of hot showers because you just get inspired in the shower, or at least I do. Do you?
Yeah.
You get this too, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. When I'm
Yeah.
stuck on something, I'll just go have a shower or go for a walk or something.
Yeah.
Always clears it up.
I'm like, no, I genuinely just sit in the shower going, yeah, but hang on, if we increase the time, the delay after this attack hits, then wait, what if we did that? Just like,
Yeah, it solves everything. Yeah.
I have like 2 showers a day normally, and if they hit like 15 to 20 minutes, then I'm like, holy crap. You don't realize how much your hot bill goes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I thought about being an indie developer, I thought it would mean I get to program all day, sit in the Unity editor or GameMaker editor or whatever you use and just make cool stuff for games, which is only partially true. I thought it was like a 90-10 split of that, but in reality, it's probably more like a 60-40 kind of split. There's a lot more business and weird legal stuff and financial stuff and other things.
If anyone tells you, oh, you can just start an indie studio and, your only overhead is yourself, or guess what? You have never heard of lawyers' fees.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they rack up hard and fast. So make some lawyer friends if you can. That will help.
Yeah, go and hang out at the law school at the university. Make friends with law people.
Yeah.
Don't just go, oh, well, we're doing this project at uni and we've got a team of like 5 people that we all had to do our end of year project or whatever. And, oh, this is great. We'll start an indie studio. This will work fantastically because we've already got a game. Like, just don't do it because your game's probably not very good. Sorry, just got to tell you, anything you're making like to hit marking criteria, it's probably not very good. But also, like, there'll be the people who kind of just join the team because the teacher put them there. You may not have an actual like great friendship with these people. It might not click perfectly, It's hard maybe when you're younger to realize this, but it's like time will fly really quickly. You'll have much better ideas. You'll form much better friendships than the people that you're around, and you'll come up with a better idea and there'll be less baggage surrounding that project.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you are 100% set on doing that, I would say get some contracts written up about how you're going to split up the work, or potentially consider starting a company together. Speak to a lawyer, I guess, is the main thing here.
A lot of these things are social things and they can have more of a social impact on you because it's like your company, your livelihood, your baby that you're making this game. Maybe someone else doesn't love it as much as you do, or they want to do something different, and egos can get involved. Things probably won't go the way you're thinking they will with your student project. And with the amount of like personal investment, indie development is a way more like you're on a precipice of getting depressed all the time.
Yeah. And the other side to that, I would say, is the lows are low, but the highs are also very high. Like when we launched Cardboard Kings, I had this euphoric feeling for like a week or something afterwards of like this massive amount of accomplishment, which I don't know if I've ever felt that sustained euphoria before in my life. But as Oscar said, it does also come along with a lot of emotional pain from people on the internet maybe not enjoying your game. So I guess you've just got to be cognizant of your own mental health, and Oscar and I are great friends, so that helps us. But just think about having your own network and community outside of games, people you can go to and talk about this stuff when it hits, because it will hit. But yeah, you get used to it over time.
There is like a lot of skills that maybe you don't learn in university that you'll learn not even just through indie development, but in life in general that are really handy for indie development, like task time completion, like estimates on how long it will take you to finish something, and knowing how long it will take someone else to finish something is really handy. It's maybe the most important thing I think in indie development is being
I totally agree. Yeah, because I think knowing that helps you stop over-scoping, which is a huge problem for a lot of early indie devs, thinking, oh, I've seen StarCraft 2, I can make an RTS, that's really easy. But when you can break down something into tasks and estimate how long those tasks are going to take, you get a much more realistic idea of what you can make. Even when I was in university, right before I started a task, writing down how long I thought something was going to take, and then afterwards look at that and see if I was over or under. And then if you do that long enough, eventually have a really good idea about your own workload. And it stops you from over-promising as well, which is good if you work in a partnership or with a publisher or something.
Yeah, and I think that also ties into another point, would be like being able to motivate yourself to do certain tasks that maybe are less fun or are really fun, but like you don't want to get carried away with them. Learning how to like motivate yourself kind of, I think, can come out of like working out how long something will take, because you'd be like, oh God, I really don't want to write this, funding pitch document. And then you realize like, hang on, last time I did it, I tracked how long it was taking me. And actually it only took me, a few hours, it actually wasn't that big a deal, and that can really motivate you.
Yeah, definitely. And find out the things that you don't want to do. And at some point, you're going to have to pay someone else to do something you don't want to do. Like for us, we have an accountant. I don't want to learn accounting, so we pay an accountant. We have a lawyer who helps us out. We don't do that stuff. When you run an indie studio, you have to wear so many hats. If you're not good at music, find a musician and pay them. Don't try to do everything yourself, because that will burn you out.
Yeah, I think knowing what your strengths are, like going into independent development, thinking like, oh, well, we'll start this project and then I'll learn how to do this while I'm making the game and then it'll come out. It's like you will probably burn out and you will hate what you've made in the end in that way. Like we did Cardboard Kings and there was a lot of stuff that I had to learn for the first time on that game. And in the end, I look back at it and I go, that element was bad. That was bad. Like, I wish I had learned that before I started it. If you can estimate before you go into a project, it's like, what skills do I have now? And then be like, okay, like, yeah, maybe I should learn those things as well, that I don't have those skills. But go in with the assumption that you need to delegate to other people if you don't know how to do something. That's not like an absolute necessity. Like you can like learn on the job, but you're going to end up being one of those like, hey, 7 years later, I'm still working on this game, developers. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying before about like, you don't want to give yourself depression. That's a real good way to do it, is your game taking 7 years to make.
Yeah. So you've heard all these points about what game dev is actually like, and maybe you're thinking, oh, this sounds like way too hard for me. And that's fine, because you don't have to start an indie studio. Starting an indie studio is kind of a giant ask, and there are many ways to get into the games industry without doing that. For instance, you could join someone else's studio or even join a big company. There's a lot of benefits to doing that as well. Generally, you'll become more of a specialist and you'll become an absolute gun at what you do, which is something me and Oscar don't really have, because we're both so spread across different things. We're not super good at any one thing, I would say. If
you are a bit of a generalist, if you're coming out of uni, and even if you like, I did programming, right? And that's like a specific thing, or I did art or whatever, you can then go into a studio and you may be in a role that's like slightly different, and you can find like, actually you're really good at like tech art. Like, oh shit, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I was really into doing hand illustration. It's like, nah, man, you are good at tech art. Or like you go in and it turns out like you have a knack for like really good UI or something. Having someone else point out to you what you're really good at is so much more valuable than you deciding what you're good at, because like everyone just decides they're good at the thing that they enjoy,
Yeah, that is one great thing about working for a big company. You get a lot of exposure to different things that you never even considered were a thing. And then you might end up loving that thing. And as Oscar said, you'll have mentors there, people who've been in the industry for 10 plus years, and they can help you just get quicker way faster than you would be able to at home, watching YouTube or something like that, which is still a great way to learn. It's just different, I suppose. If you hear all this and you think, oh, I do actually want to be an indie dev, Oscar, you brought up an interesting idea that we wanted to do for Henry's house because we were thinking about creating business cards.
Yeah, so people always have business cards, and the people who give me business cards more than anyone are like fucking students or people who just graduate. It's like, here's our student game thing. And I'm like, yeah, cool. You spent $100 on a business card. Like, more impressive than something like someone being like, check it out. We've started a studio. We're 7 people. We all went to uni together and we've got this thing and we're going to make this big game. And I go, do you have anything to show me? And they're like, well, no, but we have a business card. I'm like, you know what would be more impressive than someone acting professional is someone who's not professional, but has like a professional level game that's finished.
Yeah. It is a huge benefit you can have over other people, because lots of people can have ideas about games and have prototypes, but to actually see a whole game through, there's a lot of things you need to do at the end of game development that you will never see unless you finish a game. So actually finishing games is extremely useful. And when you can prove that to people, it gives you so much credibility.
Just let that be like a 4-5 week game, even just like something really small, but finish it, polish it up, put it on Steam or something. It says more about your team than it does your team being professional and not having a game.
Yeah, definitely. Before we worked together, you had made a few small games, and also a big game, couple of big games by yourself. What do you think is your advice for people if they want to be a solo dev, or should they, start a team? What do you think?
I don't think being a solo dev, like starting out and being, I'm going to teach myself everything and I'm going to do it solo, is a great way to do it. You'll learn things, but you'll learn everything the hard way. And one of the hardest things that I think you've got to learn is sort of like your ideas probably suck a lot of the time and you don't realize. And having just like one other person there that you have to run things by, like you might be like, oh, but my vision and stuff. It's like, but just, you can make your solo game later. Just make like a game with like one other person. I think like one other person's like good. You don't have to wrangle too many people then. There's not too many expectations. If you are trying to make some money, and quit your jobs and stuff, 2 people is a really good number, because that's 2 mouths to feed. You know what I mean? You don't have to make a ton of money back from that. So I would recommend finding one person that you like click with, try and make a game with them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, especially for accountability. When something needs to get done and there's 10 people who could possibly do it, every person feels like a tenth of the responsibility to do that thing. But when there's 2 people, it's so much more like, oh, I should probably do that. So you take the initiative more. I think even going from 2 to 3 could be a big jump. I would definitely not go more than 3 personally, but I guess everyone has their own preferences.
Just don't burn out on your first game. Your first game is not your everything game.
Yeah. Do you know the average number of games that an indie studio puts out?
Is it 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because most people burn out and they make their dream game and then it doesn't do as well as they expect and they can't recoup and they have to go back to full-time work. Yeah. So yeah, don't burn out. That is a huge thing.
They probably hired like 7 people, got a bunch of funding because they had all, it's like they were the team being professional and then they made one game.
Yeah, exactly. So regardless, no matter how good you think your game is, don't throw your whole life into it. Like approach it sensibly, I would say, which isn't a very romantic thing to say, especially when you think about starting an indie studio. But I don't know, I think slow and steady really wins the race in this industry.
I think to be an indie dev, you really do have to be a generalist. Like I know you and I know that we kind of split things a bit. Like you're way more programming and I'm more art. Like those are things that maybe one of us has a bit more strength in. But we're kind of pretty general. And I think that, for me at least, really highlights inadequacies I have when I talk to other people who are way more specialized in certain things, even at like smaller indie studios. And I think it's important to not burn yourself out or get depressed or anything, judging yourself and getting an anxiety that like, oh, everyone else is better than me. It's like, no, you are running a whole studio. So like, remember that like, even if someone's working at a big indie or a smallish indie studio that's just bigger than yours, right? Like even if there's like 4 people in their studio and it's like you are just 1 or 2 people, that's still like super impressive. You know what I mean? Like people are not judging you. They are impressed that you are running a whole company and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of like our generalism and stuff, like the reason I got into games was because I used to play in bands and I love making music, and I could never find a way of making money from making music. I think you have to be extremely entrepreneurial and clever to do that. So I got into games because I could make music for games. And that's kind of a great way to get in the industry, I think, is like coming from this other skill that you have that you love so much and then going like, I could apply that to games somehow. And that gives you a unique edge. Like we met this guy at GDC who was a contemporary artist. He did physical painting and now he's doing physical painting for his game. What's his game called? Do you remember?
I don't remember who you were talking about.
Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent.
Maybe that brings up another point, is that if you do have a strength that other people don't have, bring that to the front of your indie studio. You know, so I think something that we really focus on was like music. We've both played in bands. We've both done like music our whole lives. We're both pretty good at sound and music. That was something that we just thought like, if that's what we're best at, you know, and we're both good at that, then we should push that to the front. If you're doing this by yourself, like focus on what you're already good at. You don't have time, you don't have the resources to get good at things. You know what I mean? And that's why you should probably get good at game development before you start an indie studio.
Yeah, 100%. I hope we haven't scared people off with this video. I guess we just want to show and explain to people what it's actually like to run a studio. And it is hard, but it is also incredibly rewarding.
I have one last point. When you get into your dev hole, when you're doing all your stuff, you're crunching because it's your game and it's all right if you're crunching on yourself, but you know, you're taking care of yourself, you're drinking a bunch of Red Bull. For fuck's sake, just shave regularly. Like, oh my God. Like,
yeah.
Game dev launch beard is too real and it's disgusting because at launch, you will be doing like podcasts or videos or whatever, and I went back before and I watched we were on the Sifter podcast, which is like a video podcast, and I've got like the most disgusting, like down to my nipples long hair and this big like beard, and it's just so, and I'm like, oh hi, I made this game. Yeah the sign that someone's about to ship a game is great. Well, thanks for listening. Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Hope this was helpful to people. Yeah, like I said, we wanted this to be a little bit more about people who, hey, I like games and my careers counselor said I should just get into game development. It's like, here are some realities. Game development can just be a job for you, but being an indie developer isn't just a job. You know, I think if you want it to just be a job, maybe you should go work for a big company. You know, there's some security there.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Being an indie developer is much more like, you know, running a business. You ironically do more business stuff, more corpo business stuff as an indie developer than if you just worked at a big company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.